In the study of the end times in Islamic tradition, there's one figure who casts a truly terrifying shadow over everything else. He's known as the ultimate test, the great deceiver, the final warning before the end of the world. Today, we're diving deep into the prophecy of the Dajjal.
You see, Islamic prophetic traditions, which are called Hadith, talk about a whole series of major signs that are supposed to happen before the Day of Judgment. And the arrival of the Dajjal, well, that's considered one of the absolute biggest and most severe of them all, a final, world-shattering test of faith for every single person alive.
So what does the name Ad-Dajjal even mean? It comes from an Arabic root word that means to deceive or to cover up the truth. And make no mistake, he is a human being, a false messiah who will be given some incredible powers specifically to lead people astray. In fact, his trial is said to be the single greatest, most difficult trial for humanity since the time of Adam. Just think about that scale for a second.
But here's the thing. The Dajjal doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. The prophecies describe a world that has become the perfect fertile ground for his particular brand of deception. A world that's already pretty much drowning in chaos.
I want you to just try and imagine this for a moment. A time of huge wars, where morality has completely broken down. A time when real religious knowledge is vanishing because the true scholars are gone, and ignorant people are put in charge. It's a world where truth and lies have been totally flipped, creating a population so desperate for a savior they'll latch on to anyone, which makes them dangerously vulnerable.
And right before he appears, things get even worse. We're talking about a devastating 3-year-long global famine. In the first year, a third of the rain stops. The second year, 2/3. And by the third year, there's nothing. No rain, no plants. By this point, people are at their absolute breaking point, stripped of all security, desperate for just food and water. And it's into that world, into that exact desperation, that the Dajjal makes his entrance, offering exactly what they need in exchange for their belief in him.
So you might be wondering, how are people supposed to recognize him? Well, the prophetic traditions give an unbelievably detailed physical description. And these aren't just random facts. They're meant to be giant, flashing warning signs that scream, this is not who he says he is.
The most crucial thing to understand is that he is deeply, visibly flawed. He's described as a stout young man with a reddish face and thick, messy, curly hair, but the two dead giveaways are his eyes and his forehead. His right eye is blind, and it's described in this really graphic way, like a floating grape. And right there, between his eyes, the letters KFR will be written for kafir, which means disbeliever. And the tradition says every believer will be able to read it, whether they're literate or not. These imperfections are the ultimate proof that he's just a flawed mortal, not God.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, wait a minute, if he's so obviously flawed, how in the world does he deceive anybody? And that is the million-dollar question. The answer lies in the absolutely mind-blowing supernatural abilities he'll be allowed to use. His trial is so intense because his powers will look, well, they'll look divine.
He'll walk into a starving world, command the sky to rain, and it will rain. He'll tell the earth to grow crops, and it'll happen instantly. If you follow him, your animals get fat, your life gets easy. If you reject him, you continue to starve. He'll even summon treasures from ancient ruins, and they'll follow him around like a swarm of bees. And he'll move across the entire planet with impossible speed. It's an incredible, almost irresistible show of force.
But one of his greatest deceptions is a total inversion of reality. It's a real mind-bender. He'll show up with two rivers, what he calls his paradise and his hell. His paradise will look like a beautiful river of cool water, but it's actually fire. His hell will look like a terrifying inferno, but it's actually cool, refreshing water. So the advice in the prophecy is to choose his hell. It's this profound test of whether you trust what's unseen over the illusion right in front of your eyes.
But perhaps his most shocking act, his grand finale, will be this. He'll call forward a young, faithful man, and, right in front of a huge crowd, he'll strike him with a sword, cutting him clean in two. He'll then walk between the two halves of the body, call out to the man, and the man will get up, alive and smiling. I mean, can you imagine seeing that? For a lot of people watching, that would be the final proof. This person can bring back the dead. He must be divine.
So just when it seems like the Dajjal's power is absolute, just when it looks like he's won, the whole story hits its dramatic climax. Right at the peak of the trial, when things are at their worst, the true Messiah is prophesied to return.
The sources describe an absolutely stunning scene. Isa, son of Mary, Jesus, will descend from the heavens, his hands resting on the wings of two angels. He will land near a white minaret in Damascus. His very presence is the signal of divine intervention. The game is about to change.
In this confrontation, it's not even a battle between equals. The moment the Dajjal sees the true Messiah, his power completely fails him. His form, his might, his entire being just starts to come undone.
The imagery used here is so potent that Dajjal, this man who claimed to be God himself, will simply start to dissolve, like salt in water. All of his power, which was built on lies, literally cannot exist in the presence of absolute truth, and he will turn and flee in terror.
Jesus will then pursue him to a place called the Gate of Lud in modern-day Palestine, and there he will kill him with a spear, ending his reign of terror for good. The narrations even say that Jesus will show the blood on his spear to the people as the final, physical proof that this great deceiver was, after all, just a mortal man.
All right, so hearing all of that, the big question is, how is anyone supposed to withstand this trial? Well, the prophetic traditions don't just describe the problem. They also offer a very clear spiritual and practical survival guide for believers.
It's really a multi-layered defense. First, knowledge. Knowing the basic truth that God is perfect and can't be seen in this life, unlike the flawed, one-eyed Dajjal. Second, constant prayer, specifically asking God for refuge from this test. Third, there's a specific recitation, memorizing and reciting the first 10 verses of the 18th chapter of the Quran called Surah Al-Kahf, which acts as a kind of spiritual shield. And finally, and this is so important, avoidance. The advice is not to be a hero and confront him, but to flee, get as far away as you can, because his power of deception will be strong enough to shake even the most firm believer.
When you really boil it down, the prophecy of the Dajjal is this profound story about the battle between truth and deception, between faith and temptation. And it leaves us with a question that feels incredibly relevant today, doesn't it? In our world, which is just saturated with disinformation and charismatic figures selling their own versions of reality, how do we arm ourselves to tell the difference between a flawed deceiver and the actual truth?